Hello and welcome to this presentation. My name is Akpakachai. My colleague Bilukaya couldn't make it to this presentation, so I will be presenting our study to you. First, I'll talk about LGBTQI plus students in university level English language programs in Turkey. The aim of the study, share a very brief literature review, then the design and implementation, our findings, and finally pedagogical implications. Inclusion of queer topics or issues into course content at higher education is still almost non-existent, which means there's exclusion of queer topics from university programs impedes educating all students to critically and thoughtfully engage with the wider society and to question social injustices. So, not challenging heteronormative discourses aids in the internalization and naturalization of heteronormativity, and this perpetuates prejudice, hinders social justice, and obstructs ways to address these social issues and injustices. The aim of the study was to make local queer students' perspectives and experiences known and their voices heard in order to help instructors learn more about queer students' needs and challenges. And hopefully, this study will can provide some ideas for how to work towards making classes and lessons more inclusive and equitable. We asked what are LGBTQIA plus students' needs in language classrooms and what are some of the challenges LGBTQI plus students experience. Um, our literature review is going to be very brief, and this is a quote by Cynthia Nelson. And in this quote, an emphasis on inclusion, which adds subordinate sexual identities and aims to validate them, may be less effective than an emphasis on inquiry, which seeks to understand how language, culture, and social interactions operate with respect to all sexual identities. Um, for a larger literature, at the end of this presentation, I'm going to share a bibliography so that you can have a look at that. We utilized an online survey and we asked about queer students' needs and experiences in university level EFL classrooms in Turkey. This was open to local queer students, past and present, in English language programs as well as language programs other than English. 29 people from Istanbul, Ankara responded. The majority attended English language programs, between the years 2018 and 19. In terms of gender and sexual orientation, here is how our respondents self identified themselves. We have five main findings. We have teachers' attitudes towards LGBTQI plus topics, and under that we have neutrality and positive attitude, negative, dismissive, avoidant attitude, and not discuss uh, students' own efforts for queer visibility. We also have queer visibility, inclusion of queer topics, participation in class activities, and teachers should create an inclusive environment and include queer topics in the curriculum. In terms of teachers' attitudes, to give one example for neutrality and positive attitude, in one example, the teacher took a proactive stance compared to two other examples in which queer topics were initiated by the students themselves rather than the teacher. So the teacher encouraged the students to share their thoughts and transform their neutral stance uh, towards one that is active and positive. For negative, dismissive, avoidant attitude, one respondent actually elaborated on their experience in relation to teachers lacking the skill to tackle queer topics and issues. And here's what they said. Queer students brought issues about pronouns and other topics related to the readings covered in the lectures, yet the teacher was very unskilled about all of them. And another respondent compared the different attitudes between their two teachers, and this is what they said. One of them didn't accept they instead of he or she. The other one was really accepting and nice, and she even told the whole class to use they them. So it is clear from the students' response that they expected both of their teachers to promote the use of singular they. Um, in terms of the topic not being discussed, you can see that in the student's account, they felt a desire to maintain visibility where there was none. And it's clear from this account that the students' experience in class created the impression in them that their voice and other queer students' voices were silenced or not heard. This echoes Capra and Vandrick's findings as well. The respondent does not actually mention what they did to maintain visibility, but we do understand that they had hoped the teacher would create room for queer visibility so that they would not frequently feel invisible and have the need to say that there are LGBTI plus individuals for every topic. In terms of queer visibility, the majority said that the topics were never included, and some of them said that the topics were included once or twice during the semester, and a few mentioned once a month. Um, Current commercially produced materials used in ELT classrooms in Turkey present dialogue and characters that are trapped into, quote, Nido, compulsory heteronormativity and heterosexism. Pays, as well as Sabi and Kojaman, observe that such heteronormativity reflects the commercial motives of publishing houses. And a study of such materials at a major state university in Turkey by Sabi and Kojaman revealed their biased nature and that there was a complete lack of representation or misrepresentation of gender and sexuality. So, our respondents' accounts also echo what the research suggests queer invisibility in terms of materials and how this can make many students feel excluded. We've identified two main categories uh, uh, for this category um, that teachers can explicitly create an inclusive environment and include queer topics in the curriculum. This respondent focused on inclusion of queer people and issues in the curriculum while also pointing out accountability for institutional homophobia. This reminds us of what Mayer um, talks about how institutional heterosexuality is prevalent and invisible, and it's we can see it in the curriculum as well as in extracurricular activities. So, distributing a guidebook containing homophobic expressions is an example of how hyper heterosexuality is explicitly promoted. Um by labeling those that don't prescribe to the norm. So, for the pedagogical implications, we can say queer inquiry is one. So, teachers could engage critically with and evaluate commercially produced and supplementary instructional materials through queer inquiry to make classrooms safe and inclusive for queer students, designing and bringing in materials or utilizing the biases and stereotypes in textbooks as queer teaching moments, being proactive in teaching. So instead of putting the burden of asking questions about queer topics solely on queer students' shoulders, teachers could be more proactive and taking initiative to make space in class for discussions about ongoing language reform in the English speaking world at large, about how speakers of languages of grammatical gender tackle and find solutions to binary language structures, especially regarding gender neutral language and the use of singular they. To I would also like to mention a couple of limitations about our study. We utilize the survey, and survey can have some limitations, especially in the sense that it doesn't provide the participants to fully express themselves or their perspectives. Additionally, this didn't allow us to ask any follow-up questions, and the participants were mostly either from Istanbul or Ankara. And we also had a very small number of participants. Finally, I would like to also mention a couple of thank yous to David Hill, Justin Jacobs, and Bindu Kaya as they offered feedback uh, for the survey questions that we prepared. These instructors were part of QELT initiative, which was Queering ELT initiative that ran from 2019 to 2020. And Bilur and I were a part of this initiative, and we actually conducted this study as part of this initiative. But as the initiative dissolved, we decided to collaborate and continue the study. And here's the bibliography for those of you who might be interested. And thank you so much for listening to this presentation. And I wish you a wonderful rest of the symposium.